Hello, YouTube. So, who deserves more credit, Shedeur Sanders or the Cleveland Browns coaching staff? So, I've always believed that when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, it's always a 50-50 split between the quarterback and his ability and the coaching staff and their ability to coach up a rookie quarterback. Because there's such a big difference between college football and professional football. Just in the way of the talent of all the players around you as well as the talent of the players that you're playing. So Shedeur Sanders had a really great first game in the preseason. So he actually completed 14 of 23 passes for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. So those are really good stats. And if you've watched him in college, you would say these are pretty much Shedeur Sanders numbers right here. He was able to go out there. He completed some amazing passes. He had an amazing touchdown pass to his tight end where he threw in between multiple defenders on a bootleg. He also made some really good passes just in third down situations when he's being chased by opposing defenses. People forget that when he was in Colorado, he was one of the most pressured quarterbacks in college football. And he also had a lot of issues with his offensive line, and he was running around a lot. So it was really good to kind of see him play in the NFL, finally have actual film of him playing in the NFL and actually seeing what he does when he is pressured, how comfortable he is in the pocket. And I feel like he ultimately answered all those questions this last week, where he went out and he played very, very well. He was composed. He played well. He ultimately converted when he needed to. He threw amazing passes. He was able to look off defenders pretty well. And so ultimately had a really good game. And I feel like a lot of the success of Shedeur Sanders is going to be on the coaching staff. For Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, he ultimately is a quarterback-friendly coach where he allows them to make a lot of decisions for themselves, and he likes to play to their abilities. So he's not one of those head coaches and offensive coordinators that's going to change everything about a quarterback as soon as they come into the league. He's going to try to play to your strengths. And so ultimately, everybody knows that Shedeur Sanders was playing with the fourth-string personnel throughout most of training camp in the offseason. So ultimately, what that tells me is he's playing with a lot of players that may not make the team, players who may not know the playbook very well. But last week, he played with a lot of starters. There was a lot of really good talent around him, players that you could tell knew the offense and knew what was going on. And of course, when it's the preseason, it's a glorified practice. Every single preseason game is like a glorified practice with an opposing team, and they're allowed to hit you. They're allowed to tackle you, and the points. Everything does matter on the field as far as your field position, scoring, all that does matter, but it's still just a glorified practice. Not everybody's going 100%, trying to be the best they can. A lot of them are just trying to make roster spots. A lot of them are just trying to show, hey, look, I'm in shape. This is what I can do when I am given a chance to play. So there's definitely that difference. And so for the Cleveland Browns to go into this game having Shedeur Sanders prepared, and for him to be prepared for the game is a big deal. Now, of course, up to this point, since they don't really have really structured game plans, pretty much all they're doing on the offensive side of the ball is playing with their offense. They're really not game planning for the opposing team's defense because they really don't need to. They don't really know who's going to be on that side of the ball, whether it's the first string defensive players, second string. A lot of times it's going to be random players who you've never heard of before who are just trying to make a roster spot. So it's so hard to create a game plan for the opposing team's defense, but you can create a game plan for your quarterback and for your offense and what you're going to do to hopefully help that quarterback grow. So like I was saying, he looked like he was still in Colorado with a lot of the passes he was making, a lot of short passes, some really good intermediate to long throws, and he was very, very well when he was pressured, and he played very well in the pocket. So those are all really good things that he should be given credit for, but also the coaching staff needs to be given credit for not overloading him, for not confusing him. He's a very confident quarterback on and off the field, but ultimately, if your coaching staff is pressuring him too much, giving him too much of a load, trying to change his personality, what he does on the field too much, there can be a lot of issues where he starts playing a certain way and he starts missing things. So ultimately, I feel like the coaching staff and Shedeur Sanders both did a great job. But again, ultimately, even for the defense, they're not prepared for just Shedeur Sanders. They are prepared to run their defense, do what they need to do, but then it's also on Shedeur Sanders to recognize what are they playing with and then find a way to exploit them and then, of course, gain yards and gain points. So I think the biggest takeaway from all this is we've seen how the Browns will use him when he is playing. He played for an entire half, so it gave him plenty of opportunities to go out and play and to get within the rhythm of the game. And it was really, really good because of ultimately when you don't have to worry about quarterbacks ahead of you playing, you can just have that whole first half to just relax, go out and play, not feel like they're going to hurry and pull you out right away. You know that you have those whole first 2 quarters to play and to hopefully just get in the rhythm of the game and show what you can do. And so ultimately, this gives us a really good opportunity to see these are our first plays that we can see of Shedeur Sanders actually playing in the pros and actually seeing what he's capable of doing. So as soon as he does get a chance to play in the regular season, we're going to be able to look back on this and say, this is what he can do. Now, of course, there wasn't a whole lot of pressure. There wasn't the best defenders that the Carolina Panthers had. They weren't their best starters, but still, it was still good film for us to understand what he's capable of doing and what the Browns will do when he comes into a game. So whether it's when he's a starter and he's playing and he's planning the entire week for a certain team and he goes out there and he's actually preparing for a certain defense and he's preparing to play against certain defenders, we can hopefully just pick up right where he left off and we can see him continue to play well in those situations. But also, you have to look at it like this. When he goes into practice this week, his head coach has film on him so they can see what he does well and see how they can push him even further. Find where his weaknesses are and then capitalize on those. That's how you build a good starter in the NFL, is you find out what they do very well and you make those even better. And then also you find out what he doesn't do very well and see if you can help him improve in that situation. So there's definitely that 50-50 split. Now, of course, Shedeur Sanders was the one out there and he was the one completing passes and making plays. So I will always give the credit the most to the quarterback, to Shedeur, for what he was able to do. But that coaching staff really did an amazing job. Now, there's been a lot of news out regarding the coaching staff and how they feel about Shedeur Sanders, but ultimately, when you see how well he played, you do know he's getting good coaching. You do know that even though he was fourth string, he was able to understand what the offense wanted to do. Because again, you're primarily just playing your offense. You're not preparing for a certain type of defense. You understand certain defensive principles, but you really aren't preparing them for certain players, and you really don't exactly know what they're going to do because it is the preseason. They don't really game plan that much for the opposing team in preseason. So it was very, very good to see what they can do together as a team, as the Cleveland Browns coaching up Shedeur Sanders and what he can do when he does make it onto the field. So for their next game against the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to be really interested to see how much he plays. Right now, it sounds like he could still start next week if Dillon Gabriel's not able to go. But I'm not exactly sure how that split's going to work. If Kenny Pickett's going to be back, who's going to be back, if he's going to still get a whole half worth of play. I hope he gets another half worth of play because then that'll give us even more to see of him. See how the coaching staff is improving his game. What else are they doing with him? And to see how well he does against the Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, and their hopefully first and second string players, and to see how well he does when he does have more pressure. I do feel like every young quarterback needs a lot of time to develop, and right now it looks like the Cleveland Browns are doing a really good job of Shedeur Sanders. So I do think we're only going to see him in one more preseason game. I don't think he's going to play in the third because I feel like he's going to have enough game tape after the second game for them to really see what they can do for him and how they can help him improve his game and prepare him for the regular season. I still feel like Joe Flacco will be the starter just because he is the more veteran player. He does know more about what the Browns are trying to do. He did take him to the playoffs. I do feel like it's still going to be Joe Flacco's turn to be the starter, but for however long that is, I'm not sure if he gets injured or if he just gets benched because of his play. But I do feel like right now Shedeur Sanders is making those necessary steps with the coaching staff of the Cleveland Browns to hopefully eventually someday be the starter in Cleveland. All right, YouTube, thank you so much. I will catch you on the next one.